Shabbat Shalom, my friends. Well, normally I don't begin anything that I write or when I speak, whatever, with a quotation from the New Testament, but today I will. The book of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 34, famously states, "Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof." I could rather have chosen to quote this Aramaic aphorism from the Babylonian Talmud, Daya Litzara Beshata, which means pretty much the same. Both passages seem to counsel that we shouldn't waste our time worrying about what troubles might befall us tomorrow. We've got enough trouble to worry about right now. Sufficient unto the day is the evil thereof. Daya Litzara Beshata. Global warming has turned Los Angeles today into a blast furnace. The poor, the unhoused, and anyone who cannot afford air conditioning, all are suffering in this, the wealthiest of all nations. Queen Elizabeth II has passed away. She had achieved Arichut Yamim, the blessings of a long life, and her passing was no surprise. But she was always a part of my observed world since I was, 13 years old, though I must admit I did not invite her to my bar mitzvah. She represented tradition, stability, and a sense of honor and of duty that are extremely rare in our world. With all of the mishigas surrounding the royal family, I will miss her. And September 11th, 9/11, the people of New York and of New Jersey and of Connecticut experienced an agony and an upheaval that was in many ways unique to them. But all Americans suffered. Millions more across the globe suffered as all of our lives were permanently altered. Things will never again be as they were for us before the terrorist-controlled airplanes struck the towers. So many lives were lost. So many survivors were left to suffer physical and emotional pain. So many soldiers sent off to die. So many civilians killed. So much fear and so much uncertainty remain spread over our lives. Daya Litzara Beshata. Sometimes our current burdens are so overwhelming that thoughts of tomorrow are in danger of being pushed away. But not for us. Not for the students of Torah. By holding fast to our sacred teachings, we can gain the wisdom and the courage to build a better, happier world. And doing all of this together. Our Sedra is Ki Teitzei, Deuteronomy 21:10 and following. One last time. I ask you to ignore the surgical dressing on my forehead. I promise that I have now paid a sufficient price for having enjoyed the sun too much 25 years ago. We won't find a Sedra in the Torah richer with ethical gems than our Ki Teitzei. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs reminds us that there are no fewer than 74 mitzvot enumerated here, and the focus is not on the priesthood, on animal sacrifice, on forbidden foods, on ritual behavior. This Sedra is all about the complexities that ordinary people confront every day as we try to build moral and ethical lives. Here we learn about what the Torah expects from us in our dealings with our spouses and with our children. We are warned not to allow favoritism to blind our love and thus fracture our family. We are also warned of the sacred bonds of family life, of mutual responsibility, and of still taking personal responsibility for what we do. Here is also the only place in the Torah where the details of divorce are laid out. and we look at how Torah approaches hatred and revenge, and the reality of what later generations would come to call hatred of the Jews. Now, Sachs tried to tackle the meaning and the durability of hatred. With all of his universally accepted brilliance, I think that this particular subject was too multifaceted, even for a scholar like Sachs to comfortably discuss. And certainly what I have to say today will add little to what should be an extended conversation. Hatred is perhaps a universally shared human reaction. Hatred is more than dislike or distaste. Hatred is more than intense disagreement. Hatred is more than antipathy or disgust. Every major religious tradition teaches us to disavow hatred. Maya Angelou famously said that hatred has caused a lot of problems in this world, but has not solved one of them yet. Probably true, but hatred still remains a universal in human life. Hatred is corrosive and toxic. Martin Luther King said that hatred cannot drive out the darkness, only love can. Also, probably true. But while what we hate is learned, that we hate, I suspect, is much closer to being innate, inborn. Our text says that if a man has 2 wives and he hates one of them, but the translator is so upset by this comment that the English reads, he loves one of them and the other is unloved. Now, unloved, good word. But the Hebrew calls her hated. The Hebrew says hated. Our text says that if a woman is divorced and marries another man and the second husband hates her, hates. But the translator again renders it this way: if the second husband rejects her. Rejects a good word. Not hates, rejects. But the text says hates. We are allergic to honesty when it comes to hate. Sachs gets wrapped up in the fact that our text calls for us to utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek. Now you remember this. Amalek being the tribe that callously attacked the Israelites when they had just escaped Egypt. It is a mitzvah to never forgive and to never forget what Amalek did, and thus to hate them forever. Mitzvah. But then the Torah says, do not hate an Egyptian. Really? What the Amalekites did is never to be forgiven. They must be hated. But the Egyptians must not be hated. Sachs tries hard to show that, some hatred is justified, and that other hatred is irrational and counterproductive. He believes that hatred either can be educated away or appeased by someone changing their behavior. The World Zionist Organization leadership gathered recently in Basel, Switzerland, to celebrate the 125th anniversary of the creation of the WZO by Theodor Herzl. Boy, do I wish I could have been there. Herzl's WZO became the organizing power, the visionary structure that played a huge role in the creation of the State of Israel. But Herzl believed that when we Jews had a national state of our own, when we would become like all the other peoples, then hatred of the Jews would cease. That didn't exactly happen. So where does that leave us? Maybe just maybe, when the persistence of hatred as an ineradicable part of the human condition is fully and openly recognized by us, not denied, recognized, then we can take affirmative steps collectively, locally, nationally, internationally, to control and restrain all who would choose to act upon the very worst of human emotions. We need to believe those who hate, hear them, and believe them. Of course, I support moral education in every possible setting. Of course, we should model how repentance, healing, and forgiveness can and should work. But they will never be protections enough. We have a sacred challenge to confront hatred. And we must, with open eyes, confront that challenge together. Daya litzara b'sha'ata. The time to repair the future is now. Wow. Okay. Shabbat Shalom. Have a great week. Relax on Shabbat. See you next week.